Well, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, Ramona. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be here.
Well, love hearing insights and experiences from HR professionals like you, and especially ones that are disruptive and change makers and international. So I think you're going to bring a lot of that to the table here. But let's start by sharing a little bit about who Ramona is, like where you're from initially, where you are now, family, something you never told anybody else ever you want to reveal now for the first time to the world, favorite color, who knows, whatever else. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get to the business stuff.
Great. Okay. Well, I was born just about 15 minutes from where I live now. I'm a first generation American. My mother was born in Mexico, so I'm officially first generation. I am the oldest of four children, so I was raised by a single mom. So you can imagine what being the oldest of four children with a single mom who worked all the time, how that shapes
You the
you.
assistant mom?
I was, yes, absolutely the assistant mom, and in many times the actual mom. I think that probably may have caused more problems than it solved, because it's hard to be in that responsibility where you're trying to get everybody to school, trying to get everybody fed, the house cleaned, but you don't really have the authority to do so, right? So I think from a very young age, I was seeking a position of authority where I could make a difference, where I had that ability to really be able to affect change, and wasn't just the doer, right? Just the one accomplishing, the getting it done. So that was probably my initial foray into wanting to do some kind of leadership position, which was probably started very young. Now that I think about it, actually, that's something I've never told anyone before. It's just occurring to me as we're
You
speaking.
heard it here first.
How that shaped me, yes. But I lived in Southern California my whole life. I've lived all over Southern California, from Los Angeles to Orange County to Lake Arrowhead to the high desert, to been all over Southern California, Long Beach, only to make my way full circle right back to where I was born, almost many years ago.
No, I know there's a tinge of a connection to Kentucky, right?
There is, yes. I lived in Kentucky for a year. When I was a freshman in high school, I went to live with my father for a year. Whole different story, but that was an interesting experience, living some more very rural, living in what is considered the South by many, but not really the South. So I developed a little bit of a twang when I was there. So I kind of came back a little bit of a Southern girl. So it was a little bit of acclimating to get back, but enjoyed it there, enjoyed that experience. And I've actually spent a good portion of my career trying to get out of California again, and it just hasn't seemed to work out, primarily because I have family commitments and things that kind of keep you tethered to one location.
Yeah, they do. I know you love traveling like I do, so you've been around.
I do. I love traveling. That is my passion, my number one thing. As a matter of fact, I just booked my trip for this year to Iceland, Ireland, and Scotland. So I'm really excited about that at the end of the year.
That's
Um,
fantastic. Those are great places to go.
I haven't been to that, and I'm actually my father, who didn't raise me, but my father was actually Scottish and French, so I have not been to Scotland, so that will be good to get back there. So yes, so anyways, I like I said, I grew up kind of leading a family of four, and then actually ended up a teenage mom myself, and an official teenage mom. I actually ended up having my son when I was just shy of 17,
Wow.
which again sort of shaped the future of my life. I thought it was on a pretty good trajectory before then. I was always a good student. I had every plan to go to college. It was something that was never um, wasn't something that came afterwards. But once I had my son, it was really pretty much well, I'll be darned if I'm going to fail now, right? So I
Yeah.
had to make an extra effort to get through school, get through college, and get on with my life. So again, he probably is my biggest inspiration as far as moving me forward and helping me to find some success in life, for
So
sure.
you accidentally on purpose, we're learning leadership development like real fast over there, and in a real human way.
Absolutely. It's interesting because although I had this very strong, sort of a headstrong kid, and kind of a leader in my family and with my friends. I was also very shy and very introverted. So I'm a very interesting mix of I think I'm technically really an introvert, but I've learned to be an extrovert just because it's kind of necessary to really get on in life. Um, it's kind of an interesting dichotomy that at home, or if I had my choice, I think I would lock myself up more by myself. But I make an effort to really spend a lot of time with my friends and family to break through that.
I think that's happening more and more. There's books by a lot smarter people than me that has talked about we all have a bit of both in us, and there's different times and places for each part. And what's kind of great about it is because I like being out there too, but I love and I'm totally good being alone also.
Mhm.
And so I think we kind of need both of those because we're social animals, as they say, and yet the ability to be by yourself is a real skill set to be able to be grounded and get some time, to think and so on and so forth. Did you have the time even to play music, read or write a lot when you were a kid or stuff, or was it just constant go?
I did. Reading was my biggest hobby at the time. I read everything. I mean, if I didn't have something in front of me to read, I'd read the back of the cereal box. I'd read the milk carton. I probably knew every missing child that ever was in the day back in the day. So that um so I would read everything. I always had a book in my hand. I was someone who would get terribly car sick, but I'd figure out a way that if I could lay in the back seat and hold my book up straight, that I wouldn't get too car sick, and I'd actually try to read in the car. But I was always reading everything I could get my hands on, and I was also in choir. I was a big active in choir in school. Then I went on to be in a choir with my church, and actually that choir traveled around, and we went to different locations to sing, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, choir, and then I was even in the drama club. So I even was in a few plays when I was in high school and college. So that was fun too. So there was that part of me, again, very shy part of me. I was never comfortable. I always wanted to be, I think, the center of attention, but was never comfortable being the center of attention, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because I just had to be growing up and everybody looked to me for the answer or the fix, or, to take care of it. Um, so I just assumed that was my role, but then I would get on stage and I was very stiff and not very comfortable with it. So
Well, you're doing
it,
great here.
thank you.
No problem. No problem there. No, it's interesting how being younger shapes so much of our confidence and leadership later. And I've noticed that, to be honest, more so with men who would tell me that the coach, when I was 12, put me out there on the field or on the ice and in the most important time of the game, and it was fantastic. And they take that moment that they hold on to their whole life to give them the confidence to do stuff because that coach believed in them.
Yeah, that's interesting. My ex-husband told me a completely opposite story, which really explained and shaped him, which I thought was really interesting. So it is interesting how even one childhood experience can really kind of set you going forward.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about influencers later because sometimes they make a big impact, like for a second even on if it's the right time, right place. Tell us a little bit about the journey you did. You went from a focus on law to taking on the human element, basically. What intrigued you to do that?
Actually, it's a little bit, people assume that, but that's actually not quite what happened. I was, from the time I remember being 11, and my uncle was going to law school at the time, which I thought was really impressive given that they'd all were immigrants. And my because I was so headstrong, and because I was always debating, and because I just didn't accept things and I was questioning everything. I remember my aunts and uncles telling me, "You need to be a lawyer. You need to be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer." And I was like, "Oh, well, maybe I will. I'll be too." I was 11, right? What do I do? But I thought, okay, well, that put it in my head. But when I went to college, I actually ended up going for psychology and criminal justice. So my degrees are in psychology and criminal justice. I actually thought I would be in forensic psychology.
Oh,
Um, so that was my path. And then But of course, that takes many, many years. And I needed to get done with school and working because I had a little kid. So I didn't have the advantage or the luxury of being able to go to school indefinitely, although that probably would have been my choice had I been able to afford it. But so I actually got out of college and was really just looking for a job. I mean, I just needed to find something, right? And my first job right out of college was with the Orange County Probation Department as a probation officer for juveniles. So I started working in the juvenile hall system with juveniles right out of college. And that was a really neat experience. But it wasn't really my calling because it really felt more like babysitting than it was. I wasn't really doing much. They didn't give you an opportunity to really communicate with the kids a whole lot as far as, it was really warehousing a lot, and it was disappointing.
Yeah.
And so I went and looked for another job, and I got a job with the city of Santa Ana as a recruiter. So I actually started in HR as in recruitment. And I noticed that in that a job, I was really able to sort of make a difference. I was actually working for the city. I was on the business development side where I was seeking out the employers who were willing to hire students, these low income students that really needed kind of a start, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so we would go out and we would find these employers who were willing to take a chance and participate in the city summer program. So it was really great because I got a chance to really make a difference and see these kids coming from some families and some areas where they really didn't have any opportunity, and maybe their only chance at a job was working at a gas station or working a paper route or things. Remember paper routes when they had newspapers back then? I
I
had four paper routes when I was a kid.
I, del- I delivered the TV guides when they were like really cheap.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's something. So I really liked that, and so from there I started to look for. Was looking for a more permanent. That was a summer program. Looking for a permanent job in HR. I thought, I really kind of like this, and so I actually did payroll and HR for the first, 5, 6, 7 years out of college. Then my then husband was going through a child custody dispute with his previous spouse, and the lawyer that he had hired was just a Yahoo. I don't know what he was thinking, but he couldn't get it done. And I remember going back to the room each time and just going, what is he doing? What is going on? I could do a better job at this. This is crazy. What are we paying this guy for? And my then husband said, well, then why don't you? And again, going back to when I was 11, right? I went, well, I guess I will.
Of course.
So I was 6 years out of college then, and I said, well, I'll study for the LSAT, and if I can get a scholarship to pay for part of it, then I'll go, because we didn't have the means to pay for law school. So I did. So I studied for the LSAT and got a good score and got about a 60% scholarship to go to law school, and then I did that at night while I worked full time in HR for 3.5 years before I graduated, and then I went and got a job working for a retired judge where I did all areas of the law, including employment law, but criminal, civil, bankruptcy, everything. I mean, all aspects of the law, which was really an eye opener.
I bet.
And also, it quickly showed me that what the law really is for most people, which is just kind of a paper pushing, who can outpay the other person, who can outspend. I am a really big believer of the adage that the only people that win in the law are the lawyers. The participants, neither one of them win because they end up spending so much money. Even if they win, they lose. And so that was.
If you did a survey, you'd probably get a resounding yes to that as well.
It was very disheartening. I didn't feel like I was able to really help people. It was always about collecting bills, collecting payments, getting them to fill out another form, getting them to do another set of questions, getting them to do another deposition, showing up in court just to have the judge tell you you've been pushed another 2 weeks, and getting delays and getting, again, racking up the bills. That's all I could see.
So let me interrupt for a second. It sounds like you were really learning about culture and about not really taking care of people, basically. Right. Really, the transactions and everything going on, and what the non-equality. I mean, we work a lot with untapped talent as well, which is kind of including students, but also formerly incarcerated people and veterans, et cetera, and stuff. So I want to lead into something there that that you do in the corporate world, in the business world, and it's taken decades really for leaders to realize that aligning all their types of capital to social and even environmental impact is actually good for attracting and keeping talent, and it's also really good for business. So I'd love you to share, how some of your experiences where you had to secure support, financial support, human capital, commitment to create cultures that does make it that shows that the leaders do care about values, they do care about diversity, they do care about inclusion, because without inclusion, diversity doesn't work either. How you've gone about using your experiences now in the corporate world, creating cultures to make that happen.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a really good question. I've kind of worked on both sides of the fence. I've worked with companies who have been very interested in that, and it didn't take a lot of pushing to get them to do more. And then I've worked with companies who really haven't even considered what their part is in kind of the social landscape of giving back and being more um, philanthropic. My my previous job, the company had there, it was really part of their mission and vision to take care of the environment, to ensure that people had a safe place to work, to ensure that there was that we were constantly giving back and recognizing. Um, but they, I'm sorry, there's a background noise. It's,
It happens all the time. A dog could walk in, kids,
uh,
it's all real life.
it's my plumbing, and I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. Uh, so so at my last company, it was very encouraging because they already had that sort of statement, but then actually putting it into practice was another thing, because they were a Japanese company, and most of what they were doing was really happening in Japan. They were doing things for the environment in Japan. They actually sponsored sports. They had their own women's volleyball team. They had their own men's basketball team. These were employees that all their job was to play basketball and volleyball and
Wow.
the company. So it was really quite nice, but it was all sort of kind of a way to help students, help individuals do things that were more along the lines of their passion and what they were good at. And
Sure.
also to bring awareness to the company. But then when it came to the US side, it was a little bit more left up to us. And the leadership team was a little bit old school. They really were kind of the mindset of, we pay you, you should come to work and you do your job and go home. And that's, we know that. We know that that's kind of the mindset that we grew up with. And they didn't understand that today's generation, and really even the prior generation, were really all about something bigger than themselves. They're starting to realize that there is something out there. There's something more to life than just getting up and going to work every day, coming home with your family, watching TV, going to bed. They wanted to know that their life had meaning, that they had purpose, that they were doing more than just taking up air on this planet. And so they were the ones that were really pushing us. And we started to notice even in interviews that candidates would ask us,
Mhm.
what does the company do? How do you guys give back? What do you do with, profits? How much of that is shared with the environment? How much of that is shared with society? And so, once we were able to really show the leaders how much of that was really impacting our ability to attract and retain good talent, they started opening their eyes a little bit. Now, I want to believe that that was something that in their heart they wanted to do anyway, but either way, we were able to convince them of the importance of having those kinds of programs. And so really during the time I was there, we were able to implement a lot of different volunteer type programs, from anything from Thanksgiving baskets to beach cleanups to 5K runs for heart disease and for diabetes, and daffodils for Easter seals. And we there was lots of things that we would do. And then finally, towards the end of my tenure there, we were able to convince them to actually pay for hours of volunteering, to allow people to do whatever they had a passion for,
It's great.
and that they could spend time on, they could spend paid time up to 24 hours a year doing something that they were really passionate about. And that was huge as far as retaining and attracting people who are really into that, especially, your more tech minded people that, your younger generation, and people that are coming out of universities and other companies that already do that. It was really hard to be competitive if we didn't do that. So that was very helpful for us.
One of the thing I wanted to ask you about, the fifth industrial revolution has been pretty well coined to be humanity. The fourth is about AI and technology and all that amazing stuff going on. But the fifth is about humanity. And we try to talk to a lot of our clients on what's the effectiveness of impact and talent always coming together, because the more impact you're making, the better you're going to have a chance getting great talent. If you get the great talent, they'll want to keep making impact too, both economic and social combination. Well-being plays into that, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. What do you think the responsibility is for HR leaders and executives in general to ensure that the talent they've got, the employees they have, get the financial, the physical, and the mental well-being addressed, at least in one way or another? Because it obviously does impact them, it impacts their family, and to be honest, it actually goes right into the community too.
Yeah, it's really huge. It's again, it's interesting when you go back to, there was a period of time where you went to work, you collected a paycheck, but you also had a pension, and you were also pretty much assured that if you gave your time and your energy to a company, you'd be taken care of in your retirement years. As we know, pensions are almost a thing of the past. Very few companies have pensions anymore. We do have 401ks, but of course that requires a personal contribution, and not everybody in every case is able to do that. So if you're not fully well in all aspects of your life, your family, your financial, your health, all of those things, you're not going to be an effective employee, and you're not going to be of any use to the company. And really, so even if from a very, very selfish standpoint, it makes sense to make sure that we are taking care of our employees in those areas. So one of the things that I've really been a big advocate of throughout my career is making sure that we not only provide wellness programs for physical wellness, but that we're also providing financial education. We're also encouraging people to save. So kind of showing them and explaining to them the difference. I just brought in a HSA into our medical program for the current company. And one of the reasons was not just for medical, but because it's just another savings vehicle that they can use for retirement, right? So it's trying to get them to understand the importance of starting young, starting when you don't think that you need it, when you're not aware of it. I had the misfortune of needing all of the money I had going through life, and I didn't start my retirement plan until I was middle age, and really knowing the kind of the scary outlook of that if I didn't really take it seriously. And wanting to kind of share that with people and help them understand, there's not necessarily going to be anything there for you, even if you can rely on Social Security. You're talking maybe a couple $1,000s a month, which we know won't even pay rent. I mean, it won't pay for anything.
Yeah.
So helping them to really understand the importance of that, but also the physical, keeping people healthy, helping them creating programs in house to keep people excited about health, doing company challenges, company, you have a company walk, or participating collectively in a 5K for charity, where you're doing kind of both, right? You're achieving personal, physical, and you're also achieving the philanthropic side. So yeah, I'm constantly letting them know that we have to be very aware of the total health of our employees, not just financial, not just
Yeah,
getting.
and you know what? We're all human, and people appreciate that somebody actually cares about it.
Yeah.
To do that. Couple last things here. In LA, we say, this, we say, yeah, we got to leave them wanting more so you can do a sequel. I guess we may have to do a sequel at some point. But as a woman in business, and you're a single mom, share, I know it's probably a whole long conversation, but describe a little bit of your journey as a woman, trying to make a difference, trying to, change things for the better. But also with the experience you had as an assistant mom, if you will, and a single mom. How was that for you?
So it was certainly challenging. I mean, anytime that you're trying to raise a child, I think the biggest thing for me was I kept looking back at my mom, who had four of us. And I'm thinking, wow, if it's this difficult with one, what did she go through with four? So when you talk about influences, she was really an influencer in that regard because she worked really, really hard to make sure that we, I'm not going to say we were wealthy or even had everything we needed, but we had all the basics, right? We had a roof, we had food, we had clothes, and I know how much I struggled with just one, so I'm not sure how she did that. But as a woman, I think for me, going through that and really experiencing the challenges of being a single parent, it really helped me to be a little bit more compassionate about people and to really understand their needs more, to understand that as much as I'd like to say, leave your personal problems at home when you come to work, it's not realistic. We all carry that with us. And being able to be a little bit more understanding about that, being able to be a little bit more flexible. We've really come into an age where flexibility is really key. It's the number one thing I know for me. It's huge. But for people with families, I mean, I no longer have a young family. My son's got his own kids now. So I but for me, flexibility is still really important for my own mental and physical well-being. And because I've had those experiences, I think I can be a little bit more compassionate and can speak to them a little bit more than maybe your traditional, not to be stereotypical, but your traditional married male who has a wife at home to take care of all the day-to-day stuff and is able to just go to work and come home, bring home the paycheck, and doesn't really maybe relate as well to the challenges of women in the workplace. And it really is different.
I heard, yeah, sorry, related to that, I heard a story just the other day, but a woman politician, I won't say who said that it's the more senior women in Congress, the Senate, and whatnot that came in either through their husbands or came in after their time with kids and all that, that are not understanding the younger women that have kids that are in Congress right now and trying to make a difference in what they have to do, flexibility wise and travel wise, and not complaining, but just saying they don't even get it necessarily.
Right. I think women are finally starting, there used to be, we can do it all, right? We can bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, all of that stuff. But now it's really, we're starting to admit we can't do it all. And we do need help.
Nor should you have to do it all.
Nor should we. And we need that partnership if we have a partner or spouse. We need that partnership. We need to be able to have employers that understand our challenges and that we are not always going to be able to do or provide or give the same amount that our male counterpart might be able to do. But yet we have so much, not more to offer, but so much to offer equally, at least, in just the way of thinking, the diversity in our thoughts, the diversity in our the way that we view the world, our expectations, that bring a lot to every organization. So I think it's so important to have that female element. And being in a company currently where it's so male dominated. Actually, my last two companies were extremely male dominated, and seeing the difference, but also seeing where they lose out. They really do kind of miss out on some things because they don't always get it. They don't always know what women need or are going through in order to be successful.
Yeah, it still has to move a whole lot faster in a lot of companies, but luckily it is moving. So last question on this part. A client told me in 2021, he said, Mark, the year 2020 flew by slowly. And I thought that was an interesting comment. And the last 3 years have been crazy, blended together. You meet people that you've only met on Zoom, like happened to me recently in DC, and then you meet them and you kind of know them, but you don't know them. And you're trying to put it all together. But with respect to all that's happened, can you tell us what you're most grateful for and also what you're most hopeful for?
Well, yeah, the pandemic was a really difficult time. A lot of loss and a lot of sadness during that time. But I'm grateful that we, as a family, unfortunately, minus a few, have come through it, and that that it's brought us closer together. We've really learned to appreciate sort of the things that we never imagined happening in our life, and to really not take each other for granted, and to really become more connected to each other as a family. It also made me appreciate my teams more and really what they were going through, and to be grateful that they hung in there and that they continue to be productive members of the organization. So, I think that all in all, just from a gratitude perspective. It's just that, hey, we came out the other side. We're still reasonably okay. And, how do we learn from everything we've gone through and try not to make these kinds of mistakes and hope these kinds of things don't happen again in our lifetime? Um,
So what are you most hopeful for then?
so, I'm hopeful that we obviously don't slide backwards, that we don't have any resurgence or any issues with COVID. That's a big thing. But I'm also just hopeful that I can continue to do good work, maybe better work, that I can continue to be excited every day about what I do. I think that that's the hardest part sometimes is when you get into the weeds and you start doing the day to day. Everybody's got a drudgery part of their career, their lives, their jobs. And, I want to stay passionate. I want to stay excited. I want to be able to continue to um, grow my staff and to really help them to become better people. I always tell people at this point in my life, I'm at the point in my career where it's such a great place to be. It's really not about me anymore. I really I don't have any aspirations to be president. I don't have any aspirations. I really just want to do good work. And I just want the people that work for me to learn how to do good work and to have that same passion to do something that they're excited about every day and to know that what they're doing makes a difference in the lives of the people they're supporting. And I think all in all, kind of rounding back why I left the law and came into HR was because I truly do believe that I can make a difference in this company and in this job. um, I have so much ability to impact the pay they're receiving, the benefits they receive, the financial education they receive, the overall wellness, the support, the communication abilities with their staff and their leadership, their growth opportunities. I mean, I have such an ability to impact 80% of their life that it's a huge challenge and a little bit of a burden, but something that I think is worthwhile if you care, if you really truly care about people.
Well, that is a great way to conclude, and that definitely proves that you are a leader who cares. So, way to go! And yeah, I'm proud of you, what you're doing over there, and that we were able to connect to make that happen, and hopefully support for the future. But thank you for sharing all that. That's fantastic.
Great. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.